Admiral Kim stood on the command deck of the Hegemony flagship, the Eternal Glory. His scales shimmered with pride as he watched the battle on the huge display. The last human defense line at Jupiter was falling apart, just as planned. Human ships, small, simple things compared to the Hegemony's massive vessels, were breaking formation and running away. "Another glorious day for the Hegemony," said Commander Choi, Kim's most trusted advisor. "The humans fight well for primitives, but even their stubborn resistance has limits." Kim nodded, his 4 eyes blinking one after another, a sign of happiness among his people. 10 years of war, and finally we break them. Their tactics were unpredictable at first. "Unpredictable but useless," added Choi. "Our fleet is 5 times bigger than theirs. Our technology is hundreds of years ahead. It was always just a matter of time." The command deck buzzed with activity as officers from various species of the 17-world hegemony worked at their stations. The hegemony had existed for 8,000 years, spreading across the galaxy, bringing planets into their control, willingly or by force. Earth had been different. When hegemony scouts first discovered the blue planet 50 years ago, they expected the usual surrender. Instead, humanity refused to submit. "Admiral, the human command ship has been destroyed," reported an officer. "Their fleet is running away completely." A cheer went up across the deck. Kim raised a clawed hand for silence. "Send a report to High Command. The human resistance is broken. We will begin our approach to Earth in 12 hours. Kim turned to look at the tactical display, showing the solar system. Earth itself, a small blue dot, was now almost defenseless. The war that had cost the hegemony so many ships and lives was finally ending. On Earth, in a strong bunker deep under the Rocky Mountains, General Song reviewed the incoming battlefield reports with a serious face that didn't match the data around him. The command staff kept a professional appearance despite what seemed to be devastating losses. "Jupiter Defense Line has fallen as planned, General," said Colonel Yun. Admiral Kim took the bait. "The hegemony believes they've won." Song nodded, reaching for a secure terminal. He pressed his palm against the scanner, then entered a 16-digit code. The screen lit up with a simple message. "Confirm Protocol Lazarus?" He hesitated only briefly before pressing confirm. "Send the signal to the Phantom Fleet," Song ordered. "Operation Lazarus is now active. The hegemony will reach Earth's orbit in about 36 hours. The Dreadnoughts need to be in position before then." Colonel Yun looked nervous. "Sir, are we sure this is necessary? The casualties were calculated and accepted," Song interrupted. "For 10 years we fought this war, with one arm tied behind our back. We showed the hegemony exactly what they expected to see. A moderately advanced civilization with limited space combat abilities. We lost battles we could have won. We used outdated technology when we had better, all to maintain the deception." "And the deception worked," said Admiral Han, entering the command center. Her uniform had the insignia of Earth Defense Force's Secret Dreadnought Division, a unit whose existence was known to fewer than 100 people on the planet. Admiral Song acknowledged with a nod. "The Phantom Fleet is yours. Are the Dreadnoughts ready?" Han's expression was hard as steel. "They've been ready for decades, General. The 12 Dreadnoughts have been hiding in the dimensional pocket on the far side of Pluto since the war began. Each one carries enough firepower to destroy a continent. The crews are eager for real combat after all these years of practice and simulations." "And the hegemony suspects nothing?" "Nothing," Han confirmed. "Our intelligence suggests Admiral Kim is already planning his victory parade. The 17 species of the hegemony are celebrating the fall of the troublesome humans." Colonel Yun studied the strategic display showing the retreating Earth forces. "Our regular fleet performed their retreat perfectly. Not too fast, not too desperate. The hegemony believes they're watching our last disorganized resistance." Song turned to face his officers. "For 10 years we've maintained this act. We've lost good people, ships that could have been saved if they'd known about the Dreadnoughts and our true capabilities. But it was necessary. The hegemony could never know what we really are, what we've been hiding." "And now," asked Yun. "Now," said Admiral Han with a cold smile, The hegemony learns why Earth has stood alone among the stars for so long, why we never tried to join their alliance, why we kept our true technology hidden. Back on the hegemony flagship, Admiral Kim was reviewing the battle data when a junior officer approached, looking troubled. "Admiral, we're detecting unusual energy readings from the outer system," said the officer. "Something large is moving, but it doesn't match any known human signatures." Kim dismissed the concern with a wave. "Debris, perhaps, or damaged human vessels trying to escape. Nothing to worry about." The officer hesitated. "Sir, our analysts have also intercepted a strange transmission from Earth. They mentioned something called Operation Lazarus. We don't know what it means." This caught Kim's attention. Lazarus? From their ancient mythology. The dead man who returned to life. "Yes, sir. Our cultural experts confirmed that reference." Kim felt slightly uneasy. The humans had fought cleverly throughout the war, but never had they shown technology that could truly threaten the hegemony. Still, this reference to resurrection was troubling. "Increase scanner sensitivity," Kim ordered, "and tell the fleet to stay ready for combat. I want no surprises as we approach Earth." Commander Choi approached with a data pad. "Sir, High Command sends congratulations. They've already begun announcing the victory across hegemony space. Celebrations have started on all 17 home worlds." Kim nodded absently, his attention still on the scanner reports. "Perhaps premature, Commander. I'll feel better when Earth formally surrenders." "You expect further resistance? Their fleet is destroyed. The humans have been unpredictable. I want to be certain." In deep space beyond the orbit of Pluto, 12 massive vessels began powering up systems that had been dormant for years. Each dreadnought was over 5 kilometers long, built not just with Earth technology, but with science that had been carefully kept secret even from the greatest human scientists. On the bridge of the lead dreadnought, humanity's shield, Captain Kong watched as his crew prepared the dimensional drive. "All systems operational, Captain," reported his executive officer. "The dimensional pocket is dissolving. We'll have full visibility in 3 minutes." Kong nodded. For years they had trained in this pocket of altered spacetime, invisible to the rest of the universe. The dreadnought crews had lived in isolation, knowing they were Earth's true last line of defense. "Send to all dreadnoughts," Kong ordered. "Operation Lazarus is active. Primary targets are hegemony command vessels. Secondary targets are their heavy cruisers. Avoid unnecessary casualties, but make our point clear. The hegemony must understand what they've awakened." As the dimensional pocket collapsed, the 12 dreadnoughts emerged into normal space. Their massive hulls, dark and angular, absorbed rather than reflected light. Their weapon systems, powered by technology centuries beyond what Earth had shown the galaxy, hummed to life. "Set course for Earth," Khan commanded. "Maximum speed. The hegemony thinks they've won. Let's show them how wrong they are." The dreadnoughts accelerated to speeds that would have been impossible according to the physics Earth had allowed the hegemony to observe. They moved like predators toward the unsuspecting hegemony fleet, ready to turn a celebration into a revelation. The real war was about to begin. Science Officer Park stood quietly at her station on the bridge of the hegemony flagship Eternal Glory, analyzing the strange data appearing on her screens. While the rest of the crew celebrated their coming victory over Earth, Park's attention was fixed on sensor readings that made no sense. "Admiral Kim," she finally said, her voice cutting through the happy atmosphere, "I'm detecting unusual energy signatures at the edge of the solar system." Admiral Kim turned from his conversation with other officers. "What kind of signatures, Officer Park?" "Unknown, sir." Park adjusted her instruments. "They appeared suddenly, like ripples in space-time. Nothing in our database matches the pattern." Kim frowned. The hegemony prided itself on having recorded every known natural event in the explored galaxy. Natural anomalies, perhaps? Solar flares? Asteroid collisions? "No, sir." Park's four-fingered hands moved quickly across her console. "These are structured energy patterns. They appear and disappear at regular intervals, almost like pulses." Commander Choi approached, looking over Park's shoulder at the readings. Could it be some kind of human weapon? Their last desperate attempt. Park shook her head. Human technology shouldn't be capable of this. According to all our intelligence, they lack the scientific understanding to manipulate space-time fields. She paused. You sound uncertain, Officer Park, Kim noted. Park hesitated before speaking. Unlike most hegemony officers who saw humans as merely another species to be conquered, Park had spent years studying Earth's history and culture. Sir, there are inconsistencies in our intelligence about humans. Their technological development doesn't follow the normal patterns we've seen in other species. Explain, Kim ordered. Humans went from primitive flight to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. They developed nuclear weapons after only a few decades of understanding atomic theory. Their advancement curve is unusually steep. Kim considered this. You believe they've been hiding more advanced technology? I'm not certain, sir. But these readings... Park pointed to her screen. They suggest capabilities far beyond what we've seen from human ships so far. At the same time, in the communications section of the flagship, Analyst June was picking up broken transmissions from Earth. Lieutenant Bay, called June to his superior. I've intercepted encrypted human communications. Our decoders are struggling, but I've managed to extract some phrases. Lieutenant Bay moved to June's station. What have you found? Repeated references to something called Operation Lazarus. Also phrases like Phantom Fleet and Dreadnought Division. Bay frowned. Dreadnoughts. Our intelligence shows no human vessels of that class. That's correct, sir. The largest human ships we've encountered are their Defender-class cruisers. Nothing approaching Dreadnought size. Bay tapped his communicator. Admiral, we have intercepted concerning human communications. They reference military assets unknown to our intelligence. Admiral Kim called an emergency meeting in the flagship Strategic Command Center. Around the table sat his senior officers, with Science Officer Park and Communications Lieutenant Bay presenting their findings. So, Kim summarized after hearing their reports, we have unexplained energy anomalies and intercepted communications, suggesting hidden human military assets. What am I to make of this? Park spoke carefully. Sir, I studied human mythology extensively. The name Lazarus refers to a dead man who was brought back to life in their ancient texts. It symbolizes resurrection or the return of something thought lost. You believe this Operation Lazarus refers to some kind of hidden fleet? Asked Commander Choi skeptically. It's possible, Park replied. The energy signatures I detected could be consistent with very large ships emerging from some kind of concealment. Impossible, scoffed Choi. We've mapped the entire solar system. There's nowhere to hide a fleet. Unless, Park said quietly, they have technology we don't understand. Technology they've kept hidden. The room fell silent as the officers considered this unsettling possibility. Admiral, came a voice from the doorway. A junior officer stood there, looking alarmed. We've just received reports from our monitoring stations in the Kuiper Belt. They're detecting massive energy signatures moving toward the inner solar system. At Monitoring Station Outpost 7, positioned at the edge of the solar system, Officer Ryu watched in growing horror as his sensors lit up with activity. Are you seeing this? He asked his colleague, Officer Moon. Moon nodded, her eyes wide. Multiple objects moving at incredible speed. Size estimates are, this can't be right. The station's simple AI calculated mass and energy readings from the approaching vessels. The numbers were beyond anything the officers had seen before. We need to alert the fleet, Ryu said, reaching for the communications panel. Before his hand touched the controls, the station shuddered violently. What was that? Moon gasped. Ryu checked his instruments. Some kind of scanning beam. It passed through our shields like they weren't even there. The communication system suddenly activated on its own. A calm human voice spoke through the speakers. Hegemony Monitoring Station. This is Captain Kong of Earth Defense Force Dreadnought, Humanity's Shield. Stand down, and you will not be harmed. Resist, and we cannot guarantee your safety. Ryu and Moon exchanged terrified glances. Their small monitoring station had minimal weapons, nothing that could threaten a ship of cruiser class, let alone the multiple vessels now appearing on their sensors. "Respond," Moon whispered urgently. Ryu swallowed hard and opened the channel. "This is Hegemony Outpost 7. We stand down. We are monitoring station only." "Wise decision," replied the human captain. "Remain in position. Do not attempt to warn your fleet." The communication ended. Ryu looked at the sensor display showing the massive ships passing their station, heading toward where the Hegemony fleet waited, celebrating their presumed victory. "They're going to be slaughtered," Moon whispered. Back on the flagship, Science Officer Park was comparing historical data on human technology with current readings when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. "Admiral," she called out, rushing to the command center where Kim was discussing attack formations for Earth's orbit. "I found something critical." Kim looked up irritably. "What is it now, Officer Park?" "Sir, I've been reviewing our first contact data with humans from 50 years ago. The initial scans we took of Earth showed energy signatures consistent with dimensional technology experimentation." "That's impossible," Commander Choi interrupted. "Dimensional technology is theoretical even for us." "Yet the readings are there," Park insisted, displaying the data. "At the time, our analysts dismissed it as instrument error because we couldn't believe a species at Earth's development stage could be working with such advanced concepts. But look at these patterns." She displayed the old readings, side by side with the current anomalies. "They match," Kim said slowly, his confidence visibly shaken. "Yes, sir. And there's more. In human historical records, there are unexplained gaps in their scientific development, periods where they seemed on the verge of breakthroughs, then suddenly changed direction or abandoned promising research." "What are you suggesting, officer?" asked Kim. "I believe they've been concealing their true capabilities, sir, deliberately appearing less advanced than they are." The Admiral's communicator chimed urgently. "Admiral, we've lost contact with all our outer system monitoring stations." Kim's expression darkened. "Battle stations. All ships to combat readiness. Whatever the humans are hiding, we're about to find out." As alarms blared throughout the Hegemony fleet, the first massive energy signatures began appearing at the edge of their sensor range, enormous ships emerging from what appeared to be tears in the fabric of space itself. The celebration was over. The real battle was about to begin. Admiral Kim paced the bridge of the eternal glory, his claws clicking against the polished floor. 6 hours had passed since they lost contact with their advanced scouts. The happy mood aboard the flagship had vanished, replaced by a tense silence broken only by the beeping of sensor equipment and hushed conversations among the crew. Still no response from Scout Group Delta. Kim asked, though he already knew the answer. "No, Admiral," replied Communications Officer June. "All 8 scout vessels remain unresponsive. Their last transmission indicated they were investigating an anomaly near Neptune's orbit." Commander Choi approached, datapad in hand. "Admiral, High Command is requesting a status update. The victory celebrations across the Hegemony are in full swing. Several planetary governors are preparing formal announcements about Earth's imminent surrender." Kim hissed softly, a sign of frustration among his species. "Tell them we are proceeding as planned but experiencing minor communication difficulties. I won't have panic spreading over what is likely equipment malfunction." "And if it's not equipment malfunction?" Science Officer Park asked quietly. Kim turned to her. "What else could it be? You've seen the battle data. The human fleet is scattered and broken. Their technology is primitive compared to ours." "With respect, Admiral," Park said, "I remain concerned about those energy signatures we detected and the intercepted communications about Operation Lazarus and Dreadnoughts." Kim waved dismissively. "We've detected no vessels larger than their standard cruisers throughout this entire conflict. If they had Dreadnought-class ships, why wait until now to deploy them?" "To lure us in," Park suggested, "to make us overconfident." A moment of silence fell over the bridge as the officers considered this possibility. "Enough speculation," Kim declared. "We proceed as planned. All ships to advance formation. We move past Neptune's orbit and continued toward Earth. "Admiral," Choi protested, "shouldn't we send more scouts first?" "No," Kim said firmly. "We have 5,000 ships at our disposal. Whatever took out our scouts, be it technical failure or human trickery, cannot stand against the full might of the hegemony fleet." The orders went out, and the massive armada began moving deeper into the solar system. 5,000 ships of various sizes, from nimble fighters to massive battlecruisers, advanced in perfect formation, a display of power and discipline that had conquered countless worlds before Earth. As they approached Neptune's orbit, Science Officer Park's console began emitting a series of urgent alerts. "Admiral, energy spikes ahead. Massive distortions in spacetime." Before Kim could respond, the void before them seemed to tear apart. It began as small ripples that quickly expanded into gaping wounds in the fabric of reality itself. The forward view screen showed the impossible sight, space itself peeling open like torn fabric, revealing the swirling darkness beyond. "What is this?" Kim demanded, his voice barely audible over the ship's automatic warning systems. "Dimensional ruptures," Park answered, her voice shaking. "Someone is creating artificial wormholes directly in our path." "Impossible," Choi whispered. "No known species has mastered such technology." As the hegemony fleet came to an emergency halt, objects began emerging from the ruptures. First one, then three, then a dozen massive shapes pushed through the tears in spacetime. The bridge fell silent as the objects came fully into view, ships, but unlike any they had encountered before. Each was enormous, at least 5 times larger than the hegemony's largest battlecruiser. Their hulls were dark, almost black, absorbing rather than reflecting light. Strange energy patterns pulsed along their surfaces, and weapon ports larger than entire hegemony vessels dotted their flanks. "Dreadnoughts," Park whispered. "How many?" Kim asked, his voice steady despite the shock visible in his 4 eyes. "Sensors count 12, answered the tactical officer. "Each one approximately 5 kilometers in length. Their energy signatures are off the scale. Admiral, we have nothing in our database that matches these readings." Communications Officer June suddenly straightened at his console. "Admiral, we're receiving a transmission from the lead vessel. Audio and visual." "Put it on screen," Kim ordered. The main view screen changed to show a human male in a uniform unlike any they had seen on Earth forces before. It was dark blue with silver trim, bearing insignia that included a stylized Earth with a shield. "Hegemony Fleet," the human said calmly. "This is Captain Kong of the Earth Defense Force Dreadnought Division, commanding the EDF Dreadnought Humanity's Shield. Your forces are now surrounded. Power down your weapon systems immediately." Admiral Kim stepped forward. "This is Admiral Kim of the Galactic Hegemony Grand Fleet. We do not recognize your authority. The Earth Defense Force has been defeated, whatever trick this is." "This is no trick, Admiral," Captain Kong interrupted. "What you've been fighting for the past 10 years was merely our screening force, our defensive fleet. What you see before you is Earth's true military power." As if to emphasize his point, more ruptures opened around the hegemony fleet, with additional dreadnoughts emerging to form a 3-dimensional encirclement. The tactical display showed the hegemony ships now surrounded on all sides. "Impossible," Kim said. "We've been monitoring Earth for 50 years. Your intelligence was exactly what we wanted you to see." Kong finished for him. "Humanity has maintained a technological facade for centuries, Admiral. The ships you've been fighting were deliberately designed to hide our true capabilities." Science Officer Park stepped forward. "Admiral, I'm detecting energy weapons powering up on the dreadnoughts. Their output readings they could destroy a planet, sir." Kim turned to his tactical officer. "Battle formations. All ships prepare to." "I wouldn't recommend that, Admiral," Kong said coolly. "To demonstrate our capabilities, please observe." On the view screen, one of the dreadnoughts turned slightly and fired a thin beam of blue energy toward a distant, uninhabited moon of Neptune. The beam, almost delicate in appearance, struck the small moon. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire moon seemed to shiver before silently breaking apart into billions of fragments. The bridge of the eternal glory fell completely silent. That was our lowest power setting, Captain Kong explained. We have no desire for bloodshed, Admiral, but we will defend our world. 10 years ago, your hegemony arrived in our system and demanded our submission. We chose to study you instead, to understand what kind of civilization we were dealing with. By deceiving us, Commander Choi demanded. By observing you in action, Kong corrected. We've watched how you treat conquered worlds. We've intercepted your communications about your plans for Earth, how you would take our resources, control our people, erase our culture. We decided such a fate was unacceptable. Admiral Kim stared at the human captain, his mind racing through implications. These ships, they can't all be Earth technology. You must have allied with. They are entirely of human design and construction, Admiral, Kong said. Humanity has been traveling in space for much longer than the hegemony realizes. We've simply kept to ourselves, developing in isolation, until your scouts found us 50 years ago. Science Officer Park stepped closer to Kim. Sir, she whispered, the energy signatures match those unusual readings from our first contact with Earth. They weren't instrument errors after all. Kim realized with growing horror that the hegemony's greatest military campaign in centuries had been based on a catastrophic intelligence failure. They had committed their forces against what they thought was a primitive species, only to discover they had awakened something far more powerful. What are your terms? Kim asked, his voice betraying no emotion despite the turmoil within. Captain Kang's expression remained neutral. Power down your weapons. Return to hegemony space. A diplomatic vessel will follow to discuss peace terms. And if we refuse? Kong simply gestured to the view screen, where the fragments of the destroyed moon were still spreading across space. Admiral Kim turned to Commander Choi. Send the order to all ships. Power down weapon systems. As the commands went out, Science Officer Park approached the Admiral. Sir, these Dreadnoughts, the technology they possess, it changes everything we thought we knew about humanity. Yes, Kim agreed quietly. It does. One wonders what else they've been hiding. The flagship Eternal Glory shuddered as Admiral Kim slammed his fist against the command console. Around him, his officers watched in tense silence as the massive human dreadnoughts positioned themselves in a perfect encirclement formation. Admiral, Commander Choi said quietly, perhaps we should consider their offer to withdraw. Kim's eyes narrowed. The hegemony does not retreat. Not from humans, not from anyone. He turned to his communications officer. Open a channel to Captain Kong. The view screen flickered, but instead of Captain Kang's face, a different human appeared, an older woman with silver hair and eyes that seemed to have witnessed centuries of conflict. This is Admiral Lee, Supreme Commander of Earth's Dreadnought Division, she said without introduction. Captain Kong has transferred command to me for these negotiations. Kim straightened his posture. Admiral Lee, your ships are impressive, but do not be deceived by your technological advantage. The hegemony fleet consists of 5,000 vessels. We have conquered hundreds of worlds across dozens of star systems. This display of force does not frighten us. Lee's expression remained unchanged. Admiral Kim, I will be direct. You have one opportunity to withdraw your forces from the Sol system, return to hegemony space, and we will send diplomatic representatives to negotiate terms for peaceful coexistence. And if we decline this generous offer? Kim's voice dripped with sarcasm. Then we will be forced to demonstrate why Earth has remained isolated from galactic affairs. Lee replied simply. And I assure you, Admiral, neither of us wants that. Kim looked around at his bridge officers. Science Officer Park was studying sensor readings with growing alarm. Tactical officers whispered urgently at their stations. Even Commander Choi, always the loyalist, looked uncertain. You bluff well, Admiral, Kim said. But the hegemony does not surrender to threats. We came to incorporate Earth into our civilization, by diplomacy or by force. That mission has not changed. Admiral Lee sighed, a sound somehow more unsettling than anger would have been. I had hoped for a different response. For the record, Admiral Kim, Earth has never sought conflict with the hegemony. This war was entirely of your making, as will be your defeat. We shall see, Kim retorted. He signaled to cut the transmission. All ships, battle formations. Target those dreadnoughts and fire at will. Across the hegemony fleet, weapon systems powered up. 5,000 ships, from nimble fighters to massive battlecruisers, oriented toward the 12 Earth dreadnoughts. Energy weapons charged, missile bays opened, and shield generators hummed to full power. "Sir," Science Officer Park said urgently, "those dreadnoughts are emitting energy signatures I can't even classify. Our shields may." "Fire," Kim commanded, ignoring her warning. The space between Neptune and Uranus lit up as thousands of hegemony ships unleashed their arsenal. Energy beams, plasma torpedoes, and kinetic projectiles streaked toward the human dreadnoughts. It was enough firepower to devastate an entire planetary system. The bridge crew of the Eternal Glory watched in hushed anticipation. When the barrage reached the dreadnoughts, something unexpected happened. Rather than impacting against shields or hulls, the weapon's fire seemed to vanish. It was as if the attacks were being absorbed into nothingness a meter from the dreadnought surfaces. "What just happened?" Kim demanded. "Energy absorption fields," Park whispered, staring at her readings. "They're not deflecting our attacks. They're capturing the energy. And, sir, they appear to be storing it." "Impossible," Choi muttered. "No known technology can." "Incoming transmission," interrupted the communications officer. Admiral Lee's face appeared on screen again. She looked genuinely regretful. "You've made your choice, Admiral Kim. I take no pleasure in what comes next." The transmission cut off. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then the lead dreadnought, Lee's command ship, Eternal Vigilance, emitted a pulse of blue-white energy. It wasn't directed at any specific target. Instead, it expanded outward in a perfect sphere. "Brace for impact," Kim shouted, recognizing the danger too late. The energy wave passed through the hegemony ships like they were made of paper. As it touched each vessel, the shields flickered and died. Weapon systems went offline. Engines shut down. "Status report," Kim demanded as the lights on his own flagship dimmed momentarily. "All systems compromised," reported the chief engineer, panic evident in his voice. "Shields at zero, weapons offline, engines responding at minimal capacity." Whatever that pulse was, it disabled our primary systems across the entire fleet. Before Kim could issue new orders, the dreadnoughts began to move. They advanced with grace that defied their enormous size, each selecting targets with methodical precision. Thin beams of energy, similar to what had destroyed the moon during their demonstration, lanced out from their weapon ports. The first beam struck a hegemony heavy cruiser. There was no explosion, no dramatic destruction. The ship simply came apart, breaking down into its component molecules in seconds. "By the gods," whispered Commander Choi. More beams shot out from the dreadnoughts, each finding a target with unerring accuracy. The hegemony's proud warships, built over centuries and believed invincible, dissolved one after another. On the tactical display, Kim watched as his fleet, 5,000 ships strong, began to vanish. Hundreds of contacts were disappearing each minute. "We need to retreat," Choi urged. "Admiral, give the order while we still can." Kim stood frozen, unable to comprehend the scale of the defeat unfolding before him. This wasn't a battle, it was an execution. "Sir," Science Officer Park called out, "I'm intercepting communications between the dreadnoughts. They're talking about this as if it's a training exercise." "What?" Kim turned to her. "Listen," Park said, putting the intercepted communications on speaker. "Targeting parameters satisfactory. Energy consumption well within acceptable limits," came a calm human voice. "Agreed. This engagement is providing good live-fire training for our junior officers," replied another. "Admiral Lee, Dreadnought Group 2 has neutralized their assigned targets. Requesting permission to assist Group 3. "Granted," came Lee's voice. "But remember, this is just a minor skirmish. Don't get sloppy. These tactics wouldn't work against the void entities." "The what?" Kim asked, but no one on his bridge had an answer. "Sir," Park said, her voice trembling, "they're referring to this, the destruction of our entire fleet, as a minor skirmish." And they mentioned something called void entities. As if they're fighting another war we know nothing about. Outside, the systematic dismantling of the hegemony fleet continued. The Dreadnoughts moved like dancers in a choreographed performance, their weapons turning mighty warships into clouds of dispersing atoms. All remaining ships, this is Admiral Kim, he finally said, his voice hollow. Retreat immediately. All units disengage and return to hegemony space at maximum speed. But it was too late for most. Of the 5,000 ships that had entered the Sol system, barely 500 still had functional engines. The rest were either already destroyed or drifting helplessly. The Eternal Glory shuddered as a tractor beam locked onto it. The massive ship, pride of the hegemony fleet, was pulled inexorably toward Admiral Lee's dreadnought. "They're bringing us in," Commander Choi said unnecessarily. Kim stared at the tactical display, watching the remnants of his fleet trying to flee. Some made it past the dreadnought's perimeter. Most did not. "What have we awakened?" he whispered. Science Officer Park, still monitoring the human communications, looked up with eyes wide in realization. "Sir, I don't think we awakened them. I think they were awake all along, fighting something else, something worse. And we were just an annoyance." As the Eternal Glory was pulled into a massive docking bay inside the human dreadnought, Admiral Kim realized that everything the hegemony thought it knew about the galaxy, about power, about its place in the cosmic order, had just been proven catastrophically wrong. Admiral Kim stood by the viewport in Earth's orbital diplomatic station, staring at the blue planet below. 3 days had passed since the devastating defeat of the hegemony fleet. Of 5,000 ships, fewer than 600 had escaped. The rest were either destroyed or captured. Now, as the ranking surviving officer, Kim had been brought to Earth for what the humans called peace talks. Next to him stood Commander Choi and Science Officer Park, both silent as they watched Earth's massive dreadnoughts patrolling the space around the planet. From this distance, the true scale of the vessels was even more apparent, each one larger than the biggest hegemony space stations. "I still don't understand how they hid them," Choi said quietly. "Our surveys of this system were thorough." "Dimensional pocket technology," Park replied. "They were literally storing their fleet in a fold of space-time, invisible to conventional sensors." The door behind them slid open. A human officer entered and bowed slightly. "The Council is ready to receive you now." Kim straightened his uniform and followed. The humans had treated the prisoners with unexpected courtesy. No restraints, no cells, just comfortable quarters and polite guards. It was not how the hegemony would have treated defeated enemies. They were led into a large circular chamber. Around a crescent-shaped table sat 12 humans in various uniforms, representing different branches of Earth's military and government. At the center sat Admiral Lee, her silver hair and weathered face now familiar to Kim. Admiral Kim, Commander Choi, Science Officer Park. Lee greeted them. "Please be seated." As they took their places, Kim noticed something unusual about the chamber. The far wall was transparent, but instead of showing space or the Earth below, it displayed what appeared to be another dimension, a swirling dark void where strange lights pulsed and moved. "What is that?" Kim asked, unable to contain his curiosity. "That," Admiral Lee said, "is what we've been fighting for the past 3 centuries. We call them void entities. They exist in a dimension adjacent to our own and have been attempting to breach into our reality for longer than human civilization has existed." Kim stared at the swirling darkness. Within it, massive shapes moved, things that defied description, with geometries that seemed to violate the laws of physics. "You've been at war with these creatures?" Park asked, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear. "Not just humans," another council member explained. "Many species across multiple galaxies have joined the effort. The hegemony is just one of several interstellar powers that remains unaware." Admiral Lee leaned forward. "Admiral Kim, what you witnessed near Neptune was a fraction of Earth's true military capability. We maintain the facade of a less advanced civilization for a reason. It allows us to monitor which spacefaring races might become allies and which might become threats." "And you determined the hegemony was a threat," Kim stated. Your empire's pattern of conquest and subjugation made that clear, Lee confirmed. But we have larger concerns than territorial disputes. The void entities grow stronger, their incursions more frequent. A holographic display activated in the center of the chamber, showing a map of the galaxy with numerous red points pulsing at different locations. Breach points, explained a scientist on the council. Places where the barrier between dimensions has weakened. We've contained most, but new ones appear faster than we can respond. Kim looked from the map to the viewing wall, where the shadowy entities continued their hypnotic movement. Why show us this? Why not simply destroy our remaining ships and be done with it? Admiral Lee's expression softened slightly. Because extinction is not our way, Admiral, and because the coming conflict will require all sentient species to stand together. The hegemony possesses resources, territory, and population that could strengthen the alliance. Alliance? Commander Choi asked. The Multidimensional Defense Alliance, said another council member. 47 species from 18 galaxies, united against the void. Kim felt as though the ground beneath him had shifted. Everything he had believed about humanity, about the hegemony's place in the cosmos, had been fundamentally wrong. What exactly are you proposing? He asked. Admiral Lee stood and approached the viewing wall. The entities beyond seemed to react to her proximity, pressing against whatever barrier separated them from the chamber. We offer the hegemony a choice, Admiral Kim. Return to your people. Tell them what you've seen here. Inform them that Earth extends an invitation to join the Alliance as equals in the fight against extinction itself. She turned to face him directly. Or continue on your current path, and when the void breaks through, face it alone. The chamber fell silent. In that moment, Kim understood that the war with Earth had never been the true conflict, merely a prelude to something infinitely more terrifying. If I were to deliver this message, Kim said carefully, what assurance do I have that your alliance would treat the hegemony as true equals? That this isn't simply a more sophisticated form of conquest? Lee nodded at an aide, who presented Kim with a small crystal device. This contains proof of everything we've shown you, plus the Alliance Charter and the history of our conflict with the Void. It also includes coordinates to neutral meeting grounds where hegemony representatives can safely convene with Alliance diplomats. And if the hegemony refuses? Choi asked. Then we will respect your sovereignty, Lee answered. We will establish a treaty marking Seoul as forbidden territory to hegemony forces. And when the void comes for your worlds, as it eventually will, we will do what we can, despite your decision. Kim took the crystal, feeling its weight in his palm, a weight far beyond its physical presence. I will deliver your message, he said finally, but I make no promises about how it will be received. That is all we ask, Admiral Lee replied. Your remaining ships will be escorted to the system's edge. You are free to depart when ready. As they were led from the chamber, Science Officer Park fell and stepped beside Kim. Admiral, she whispered, if even half of what they've shown us is true, everything changes, Kim finished for her. The hegemony, our understanding of the universe, all of it. Will the Council believe us? Choi asked. Kim glanced back at the viewing wall one last time, at the darkness and the things that moved within it. They must, he said, for all our sakes. 3 days later, the remnants of the hegemony fleet departed Seoul, escorted by 2 Earth dreadnoughts to the system's edge. As they prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Admiral Kim stood on the bridge of the Eternal Glory, staring at the view screen, showing the massive human vessels. Set course for Hegemony Prime, he ordered. Maximum speed. As the stars streaked into lines around them, Kim clutched the crystal containing humanity's message, and perhaps the future of all sentient life. Behind them, Earth's hidden fleet returned to its dimensional pocket, vanishing from normal space as though it had never existed, waiting for the next threat, whether it came from the stars or from the void beyond reality itself.